Welcome to the Fantasy Syndicate Podcast with your hosts, Joshua Poniatowski and Alex Taylor. Let's talk football.
Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Syndicate Podcast. My name is Joshua Poniatowski, and always I'm here with Alex Taylor. What's going on, Alex?
What up, Red Rock? Let's do it.
Today we're going to be talking about sleepers, deep sleepers, some of the guys going, outside the first 10 rounds, one at each position, why we like them, why they're worth a flyer. But before we jump into that, as always, we're going to talk about news around the league. So we don't we don't have anything announced to that yet, but I'm gonna have to make one of those.
We're getting there.
Yeah. So preseason is going to be full effect this week. We kind of got a teaser last week, but this is really where, not too much on. I guess Olympics is still riding pretty strong, but, once football gets on, it's a good opportunity to see some of those late draft picks, those guys that you don't necessarily get to see, pick up, and identify some sleepers that you like, not just from their college data, but, from what they're able to do on the field. So it's a good time to scout.
I've definitely been binging the Olympics hard.
Right.
But the thing was fun to watch and get your first taste of football, and getting to see that new kickoff was kind of interesting. I'm kind of curious to see how that's going to play out. It looked a little times, but I think it should be cool because that play's kind of been neutralized in the modern NFL. So
Yeah, it'll be interesting how other coaches, maybe come up with some different schemes to it, being so fresh. I don't know if we've seen anything crazy yet. The average starting point, though, for a team who received the kickoff was like the 26-yard line, which is kind of on par with the, touchback rule was before. So we didn't, we saw some breakaways, starting to 30, 40, but if a team hypothetically figures it out and they're starting 10 yards closer to the end zone, like that's going to have I feel like a pretty significant impact from a fantasy production standpoint for whoever that team is that figures it out,
Yeah, that could be really cool for like guys who are kind of like strong RB2s on their team who maybe like are handcuff committee guys who, and if they start taking some kickoffs, could really boost their value. We got to see how these special team coordinators kind of want to incorporate the new play.
For sure. Xavier Legette, foot injury, leg injury at practice. He's getting x-rays done, he has x-rays done, negative, but he's getting an MRI right now. He's day to day. They're projecting him to miss the first preseason game. So keep an eye on that. Panthers, they tried to bring in some weapons for Bryce Young, and now, some of those weapons are getting hurt, which isn't a great look. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, unfortunate because I feel like Bryce Young was in a terrible spot last year. Not that he didn't, played good in his own merit, but that whole offense was pretty rough. So I was excited to see him maybe get a little bit fairer of a shakeout, and so if he's got to miss time, that would really hinder that offense.
I agree. I think that even losing one guy, hurts him, especially with RB1, drafted second round, Jonathan not getting an opportunity to start the first 4 games at least. So I agree. Losing any additional weapons for him is not going to be good. We got the Puka knee injury. He's week to week. It's said not to be serious. There isn't any other news outside that, but I would love to get to our draft so I can draft Cup before this happens, to be honest.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
They could definitely flip flop by the time actual drafts kind of start happening.
I know. Cup was good value. I liked where he was going, but yeah. So we'll have to just monitor Puka and see how he does moving forward. And then talking about deep sleepers. So this is more of like a dynasty deep sleeper, but it's coming out of news out of camp. Johnny Wilson, wide receiver, drafted in the 6th round to the Eagles. He's apparently been competing for that wide receiver 3 spot. He's been taking first team reps, and they run 70% of their formations out of 3 wide receiver sets. With the new OC in town, I don't think will be relevant redraft, but something to keep an eye on, deep sleeper and dynasty for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if it's if it's just a free pickup and you got the space in a dynasty situation, sure. I mean, I
For
don't
sure.
try to read too much into random fringe guys in camp because
Yes,
you never know who they're going up against. What
of
DBs are
course.
even playing in their preseason games or in their training camps or stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
but hey, who knows? Maybe he proves himself, and but that is a tough wide receiver room already in front of him
Yeah,
with
for
Devontae
sure.
and AJ Brown. So he's gonna get pushed aside pretty easily. But
Nothing more wide receiver 3 if he even gets that opportunity against super deep dynasty formats. But all right, well we'll jump into the redraft rankings again. We're gonna go one position at a time. Alex, you can get us started with quarterback. So who you like at QB?
yeah, I'm so excited for today. Doing more deeper sleepers than we've
Mm-hmm.
kind of doing like value picks and like fade stuff like that. This is getting pretty late. People who you can get super cheap or even free on free agency afterwards.
Yeah.
For quarterback, I'm gonna go with Old Faithful Kirk Cousins. He's coming off the ACL injury, so he's fallen all the way down to or Achilles injury. Sorry, he's fallen all the way to QB 18, which currently projected like round 12. If you're in a 10-man league with one QB, a lot of guys don't even necessarily go to have a backup QB on the bench, so like he might not even get drafted depending on your league settings.
Yeah.
But before he got hurt, he was averaging sixth most fantasy points per game at
Mhm.
19.4. Obviously, that's because he had JJ. But now, where he's going over to Atlanta, new team, new offense, all that. It just seems like all of the individual players are getting hyped up as like this is going to be some potent offense, and yet people are just completely disregarding Kirk Cousins,
The quarterback. Yeah.
Bijan first round pick,
Yeah.
Drake London late two, early third round pick. Yeah, even Pitts is still hanging around just on like hype. This entire offense is built on hype, and yet
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins is getting none of that.
Hmm.
Um, sometimes situations like this, I like to look at Vegas. MGM for their prop bets have him at right about 4,000 yards and
Okay.
27 touchdowns.
Yeah,
That's late QB1. That's like QB 10 to 12 range
for
for a
sure.
guy that you're getting for free. So he is coming off that Achilles injury, which isn't fun by any means. But mobility was never part of his game, so it's not really that too
Right.
big of a concern. And
Yeah.
Atlanta's O line is actually sneaky good. They're returning
Okay.
all five starters from last year. I think it could be a top five pass blocking unit. So I think he's gonna have good protection. Doesn't need to run a lot anyways. Obviously, if doesn't have all his mobility with his legs, that would suck. But he's going behind guys like Herbert, who's got like no weapons. T Law, who's I don't know. We're still trying to figure out if T Law is
Yeah.
even real. Rookies like Daniels and Williams who haven't done
Hmm.
anything.
Right.
So it's like if I punt the QB position totally, you can just scoop him up late and probably get pretty solid. He's may not have crazy boom games, but he knows what to do with the ball, and I think he's going to be steady for you.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on Atlanta wide receivers and tight ends. I'm not high on them, but I agree. Kirk Cousins is one of those guys that's been fairly reliable quarterback. They got a new offensive coordinator in there, Zach Robinson, who comes from the McVay tree. So they're going to be running three wide
He doesn't
receiver
come
sets
from
a
the McVay
lot.
tree today.
Yeah, I know. Honestly, there's so many. There's so many people when you're looking at when I was doing the team breakdown. But yeah, so they threw the ball out of three wide receiver sets 90% of the time. So maybe not that high, with Zach Robinson's offense, but they're going to throw the ball. They're going to run a lot of pass heavy sets, which obviously bodes well for the receivers, tight ends, and Kirk. And he has the talent, the young talent around them. That talent really hasn't done much, but he does have the talent. So I like the pick. I agree, Kirk, and that's why I love taking late quarterbacks because there's so much value in the later rounds, especially based off your format. So couldn't agree more. I like Kirk too.
Who you got?
So my guy is similar situation. What you were talking about, like these are some of the top position players at tight end and wide receiver, and everybody's sleeping on Jared Goff. So St. Brown is wide receiver 4, right? Laporta wide receiver, or sorry, tight end 1 right now. everybody's projecting him at least to have probably like 7 to 8 touchdowns, 1,000 yards each, ballpark, right around that range. So just with those two people, you're talking like 16 to 20 touchdowns and 2 to 3,000 yards. Maybe that's a little aggressive. 2,000 yards for those two, and that's not incorporating running back, their other wide receiver. Their pass heavy offense, they threw the ball, they dropped back 600 times to throw the ball, which was number 2 in the league last year. So nothing's going to change. They were number 5 in red zone pass attempts. He has all the weapons in the world around him, and he's going as QB 13 in the 11th round. Again, another late dude, going after Caleb Williams, who hasn't even seen a snap. So, why wouldn't he finish top 7, maybe even, top 10 range for quarterbacks? So,
I like that. And kind of, and then did you see Amon-Ra bet Gibbs that he can get 1,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving?
And
So
receiving.
yeah, he got Gibbs, Laporta, and Sungod are all going to be within 3 rounds. I mean, Laporta maybe
Yeah.
falls to the 4th. So it's like, why would the quarterback not be relevant in that situation?
Yeah.
The only thing, they do pass the ball a lot. I just know once they get down into the goal line within the 5-yard line, Dan Campbell loves to just pound the rock. I mean, we saw that with Montgomery stealing all the touchdowns. We saw that with, remember a couple years ago when it was Jamal Williams, going insane with touchdowns. So that's the annoying part about that offense is they pass the ball all over the field, and then all of a sudden they get within like 1 or 2 yards and it's just pound the rock, pound the rock, pound the rock. I respect it from a football perspective, but it's always annoying that it's like RB2 that doesn't really do much else except for just get a ton of touchdowns. So.
Yeah, it's very possible too that red zone stat, top 5 in the league was because they just had so much offense and they were throwing the ball so much during the game that it inflated that data. But yeah, no, they definitely like to run the ball in the red zone. But I think there'll be plenty of scoring to go around, so I like Goff that pick. All right, who you like at running back?
So running back, I am taking Rico Dowdle. He's going to be RB 46, which is like round 15. So again, basically free. He's really only being taken currently as like a handcuff for Zeke, essentially, which Zeke has got to be one of the most like exposed RB1s in the league. Rico had 4.1 yards per carry last year. Zeke only had 3.5. Rico didn't get he had Tony Pollard in front of him last year, so he didn't get a ton of action. He only had a 22% snap share, but still was putting up 5.2 fantasy points per game. So if something were to happen where he maybe takes over that main role and maybe gets like 60% snap share, he could easily be double digits consistently and just be like a locked in RB2 on a high powered defense. Cowboys O-line has been, historically been really strong. They did just lose Tyron Smith, but then they drafted Guyton from Oklahoma in the first round. So we'll see. I mean, Tyron Smith was a beast, but I think they'll still be a pretty strong unit, maybe not as elite as they have been. And then Rico has also shown he can contribute in the passing game as well. So again, for a last round flyer, here's a guy who could potentially become RB1 on a high powered offense.
Yeah, I mean, their offensive line unit's still, close. I think it's still cracking the top 10 for sure, even though they lost that big asset there. And Zeke for sure is like, of all RB1s, the biggest question mark and probably the easiest path for a backup to come in and potentially take that role. So I agree, for low draft stock, if you're looking for a handcuff that potentially could become running back 1, not just because of an injury, but because of, he just outplays him or competes him in camp or whatnot, he's definitely somebody to look at. I will say though, he's going on his 4th year, not great optimism there if he hasn't been able to see a whole lot of playing time behind the other guys, but still, Zeke, 29 years old. We saw the drop off last year, even though he had a high ankle sprain. Eckler, around that age range with running backs, not many can do it after that 28 year old birthday, 27 birthday. So he's going on 29. So I could potentially see Rico taking over for sure. My running back, kind of the opposite situation is Jerome Ford. He's running back 39. He's going in the 12th round. Literally, this man is going to be running back 1 in Cleveland until week 4.
Yeah.
Chubb is out 100% until week 4. So if you're talking about a late running back that you're going to get at least 15 to 17 touches out of a game, Kareem Hunt is gone, and he took 150 plus carries last year, 9 touchdowns. Kareem Hunt had 9 touchdowns last year, which is crazy to think. So there's going to be opportunity for him to score. Low cost running back 2, running back 3 range based on how deep your league is, especially if Chubb stays injured. And he had top 15 targets in 2023. So he's going to be a workhorse, not just on the ground, but also through the air to catch the ball because they trust him to make catches. So I just love this pick for the value.
Yeah, I mean, Cleveland has a great O-line too, a strong defense. There's always going to be, for the most part, they keep positive game script. Very rarely are they getting like blown out. So yes, I mean, and then there's no guarantee what Chubb is going to be like when he comes back. So yeah, for how late he's going, and yeah, and the fact that you get him as a starting running back for the first 4 weeks minimum, it's like, why not take that? Who knows what happens? Maybe you can flip him as like a trade bait situation to someone who's doesn't think Chubb's going to come back or something like that, or
Right.
or maybe you target him as like a trade situation, but if
Yeah.
someone's trying to dump him off after week 4. Okay, so next up we got wide receivers.
You got it.
I'm kind of going a little wild card. I'm going to go Mike Williams. He's currently wide receiver 56. Again, round 14, basically free. He's a guy who's been around in the league for a long time, been producing for a long time, but he did have that big ACL injury last year. So it's a big question mark, and that's why he's fallen so low. He was still averaging 13.5 points per game in those 3 games he had to play last year. He was a proven deep ball receiver. Going to a team that hopefully has a healthy Rodgers, and he won't have to be like the main guy at all. I mean, they got Garrett Wilson, young stud, and Brees Hall, so they have other clear token players that'll take all the attention from the defense. Come back in the ACL injury is always tough. You never know if maybe he's lost a step. And being a deep ball receiver, he kind of needs that. So we'll have to see what happens. But consider how late you're getting him. It's one of those situations where if he's healthy and he's the number 2 on a Aaron Rodgers led offense, like it could be explosive. And this is one I consider a legit like league winner potential. Some of those other ones like Kirk, my Kirk Cousins pick is like it's nice value for how deep you're getting, and Rico Dowdle. It's nice value if he takes over the RB1. But Mike Williams, if he's healthy and Rodgers stays healthy, I mean, I think it could be really explosive. Plus, from like a personal life kind of situation, he's going to a new team for the first time ever in his career. He's drafted by the Chargers. And, sometimes that gets people hyped up. They get excited. He's going to New York. He's on a big market team with Rodgers. Like he might come out just get really motivated and play really strong. So I'm excited about his possible potential this year.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Garrett Wilson, right? His, I think, draft stock is being inflated because Rodgers is a starter, right? Obviously, Garrett Wilson is a young stud. We expect him to be wide receiver 1 in that offense, but Mike Williams is the veteran who does, have the ability to, break away and get open deep ball passes, and we know Aaron likes to throw the ball deep. So I agree. Like this second wide receiver this late, if he becomes Aaron Rodgers, like even focal point for at least a little bit of the season, and Garrett Wilson isn't the guy in New York, even though I'm sure he's going to be, there's definitely high upside there. And even if not, you're still seeing 5 to 7 targets a game. You can do a lot with that as wide receiver too. So,
oh, absolutely.
like Mike
Considering he's like a deep ball guy, and Aaron loves those kind of like broken plays or like catching the defense, like when they're subbing in or out like that. Which you got 2 veteran guys linking up. I think it could be really good. Who you got?
You've convinced me on Mike Williams for sure. So I'm sold. I'm sold now. So my wide receiver, he is an old man. His name is Adam Thielen. So this is for sure stretch. It was tough to find exciting wide receivers, but he's going round 17, so he's not even being drafted in some formats. Wide receiver 67. He somehow finished top 25 wide receiver last year. He was wide receiver 5 through the first 6 weeks of the season, and that was due to just his insane amount of targets. He is still the most veteran person on that offense as far as somebody that Bryce Young knows is reliable, be able to throw to him. Panthers ran number 2, 11 personnel sets, so 3 wide receiver sets. So even if Thielen slots into, the slot role, he's still in on 88 to 90% of the plays that they're running because of how frequently they run through wide receiver set. So I don't know, it could be a late flyer. Maybe you get a couple good weeks out of him. I don't think this is like league winner wide receiver. I think this is like maybe get him early, get the first, couple good weeks out of him where Bryce is trying to, rely on veteran presence and pass the ball from targets perspective, PPR upside. But yeah, I think there's some opportunity there.
Thielen might be one of the most like underappreciated receivers of the last like decade. It seems like every year people are like, he's not that good, and then he just goes out and just keeps producing. Yeah, I mean his start to the year last year was insane. Caught everyone by guard. Everyone was like, "What is happening?" He did cool off there pretty hard. But still,
He
for
did.
what you drafted him at, he was drafted at nothing last year. You were pleasantly surprised. And it's probably the exact same thing is going to happen again this year. You'll just be pleasantly surprised if you're the one guy who scoops him up. Because everyone just assumes he's not that good, but he just always does it.
He always figures it out. All right, who you got for tight end?
Last up, tight end, I'm going to go Cole Kmet on the Bears. This is a tight end 15. So about round like 13 to 14. Again, I mean, if it's just a 10-man league, maybe even if it's like a 12-man league, not a lot of people take a backup tight end, so he might not even get drafted. He's a guy who is been in the league 4 years now. And it seemed like he's always kind of been on like the sleeper, like a frequent sleeper pick. Never really totally seemed like he ever totally really amounted to this full potential. But if you kind of dive into it, I get a little excited about him. Over his 4-year career, every year he's had more fantasy points than the year before, and he's had more receptions than the year before. So he's establishing himself and proving it, his relevance there in Chicago. And last year, he actually finished as tight end 7. Just kind of super under the radar. But he did have a lot of red zone targets. He had 19% of the team's total targets and 15 in the red zone, which the 15 red zone targets was the same as Sam Laporta, who gets all the hype.
Right.
I think one of the concerns is that they have a lot more competition. Keenan Allen getting added, obviously Rome getting added with DJ Moore. But with the added competition, there also is an expectation that there's going to be a better offensive product, and so I think there'll be more action as well.
Yeah, I mean Cole, he was one of the guys that I was eyeing for tight end before I went in a different direction. Those red zone targets is what I was looking at too. Like that's top 5. If they have a better offense this year, that number should see an increase. Also, rookie quarterbacks, tend to rely on, sometimes that easy tight end dump off, those seam routes, those things the first see on their first read when they look up. So I think, could be a rookie quarterback opportunity as well going to his tight end, even though Keenan Allen we know is going to gobble up a lot of targets. But yeah, as a late tight end, sure, absolutely. And you said he finished tight end 7 last year. You finding late round tight ends, I feel like is like last year it was Sam Laporta. Like almost every year there's somebody that you can find late with tight ends to help you.
Trey McBride was on the waiver wire.
Trey McBride.
7.
Yep. Isaiah Likely.
Njoku. He was a bust for the first half and then all of a sudden popped off.
For sure. So I mean, a lot of opportunity with tight ends, just plugging and playing, even if you don't get an elite one early on. So my tight end pick is a lot of people are probably going to groan at this, but I have Taysom Hill, tight end extraordinaire, quarterback extraordinaire, running back extraordinaire, wide receiver. He does it all, right? The Swiss Army knife. Obviously, Taysom Taysom doesn't fit into a normal mold, right? Like it is so hard to start him when you have one tight end position and you're like, all right, he's going to get me no points or he's going to get me 40 points, right? There's usually no in between with this man. But I like this one. He's going in the 16th round, tight end 18. He is free. I mean, unless you're in a tight end premium league where you're starting 2 tight ends, like for the most part, he's probably going to be free in your league. They just got a new offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak. This is like a fun fact. So Clint's dad and Kyle Shanahan's dad were the ones that created the Shanahan style offense. So back in 94, they got together. They were 2 offensive minded guys. They coached, I think it was like 5+ years. They created this offense and then they ran it. And this is like modern day NFL, what we're watching Kyle Shanahan do with the Niners. So it's just cool because he is now taking over as offensive coordinator. And I think of Debo, right? We think of Debo having multiple rushing opportunities on the ground. They also run most of their sets out of 2 wide receiver, 2 tight end, or 2 wide receiver, 2 running back, those types of sets where tight ends are on the field. Kittle benefits from this type of offense. I feel like with the new scheme, and these are news coming out of camp, if Taysom can get that Debo type of role in the backfield with running opportunity, they said they're going to try him at running back. I feel like there's opportunity for not just boom and bust games, but maybe a more consistent, tight end showing with the opportunity of the huge boom games at that point. So I love Taysom at this pick.
Maybe he's getting more snaps. I'm excited. But to me, Taysom Hill is just like the forbidden fruit. He has been on and off my rosters across all my leagues so much over the last couple of years. You always get excited. Oh, he's gonna be getting quarterback snaps too, and it's like, oh my god, I'm gonna quarterback in the tight end slot. That's gonna break the game. And then he goes out and just has a complete stinker. I mean, you're taking him all the way the very last round, if that. So we'll see what happens. Well, new offense. You never know what's going to happen. I wouldn't say I'd be excited about him by any means, but as a flyer, whatever.
Could be a late tight end stash, or even just like keep an eye on the waivers. Week 1, week 2, just to see how he's incorporated into that offense. Again,
He always
late.
has that one game where it's like 2
upside.
touchdowns, and everyone freaks out and blows their fab for him, and then he just does nothing for the next 5 weeks, and you're like, why did I do that?
It's true.
Again. I can't fall for Taysom Hill.
Yeah. So draft him last round, hold on to him. He has 2 touchdowns, trade him away, or at the very least, at least you got a guy. So. But yeah, so I feel like these are our picks. You want to run through them again, Alex? Your top kind of deep sleepers.
Deep sleepers. Quarterback, I got Kirk Cousins. I think he's gonna be on high-powered offense. Coming off the injury, a little concern. Running back, I had Rico Dowdle. Just kind of like a really high-end handcuff. Essentially, I think he's got the easiest path to RB1 percentage snap percentages. Wide receiver, I got Mike Williams. Perennial deep threat receiver on an Aaron Rodgers-led offense, just coming off that injury. That's the concern there. And then at tight end, I got Colt Kmet. Slowly just improving year in, year out. Finishes tight end 7 last year. So I think just a reliable guy you can get super late.
Good. And then mine, Jared Goff, his entire offense is projected to be, running back, tight end, wide receiver, first-round picks, second-round picks for the most part. So why not give this guy an opportunity since those guys are going to have to score. Running back, Jerome Ford, he's literally running back 1 for at least 4 weeks, and he's a pass-catching back, so you're getting him ridiculously late for a starting running back. My wide receiver was Adam Thielen, old man Adam. He still has some gas in the tank. He could still see some PPR production early on. Maybe trade him away after the first couple of weeks and his knees start to hurt, but I feel like you can get some good value for those first couple of weeks. And then Taysom Hill, tight end, my last pick, new offensive coordinator, hoping he slots into that Debo role with that Shanahan style, background that Clint brings. And just huge, obviously boom upside if it does hit there. So those are our sleepers. Tell us who you don't agree with. Connect with us on Twitter, Discord. Email us at team@syndicatefantasy.com. Email any of your questions, anything you want to talk about in the show. We would be happy to talk about them on the show. So please hit us up, and you can find our rankings, syndicatefantasy.com. And we'll catch you next time. Go steal a championship. See ya.
Yes.